Okay, so Knives Out is written and directed by Rian Johnson, and it stars a whole ton of people, including Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Jamie Lee Curtis, Toni Collette, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Lakeith Stanfield, Anna de Armas, Catherine Langford, Jaden Martell, and Christopher Plummer. And the film follows a family that gets together for Christopher Plummer's birthday. And unfortunately, after his birthday party, he's found dead, and it's reported that he committed suicide. But Daniel Craig comes in, and he believes that one of the family members actually murdered him instead of the reported suicide. And I actually got to go to one of the early access screenings because, aside from, say, opening night movies or Thursday night previews before the debut on Friday, this is one of the few times I've actually gotten to see a movie before the actual movie is released. So that was actually really cool. And it just so happened to be for one of my most anticipated movies for the rest of the year, mainly because Rian Johnson, for the most part, has done really solid work, in my opinion. Um, and this cast sounded fantastic from the moment it was announced. I'm like, each new casting addition, like Daniel Craig, yes, Chris Evans, yes, Jamie Lee Curtis, yes, so on and so forth, so forth. And I gotta say, the movie for the most part is it's solid. It's really good. It's just there are a couple moments in this movie that kind of I would say annoyed me, but more on that later. So with the main things I like in this movie, the cast for the most part is actually really solid. Like everyone kind of has their own character. They have their own unique take on their characters. Like everyone has their own personality. That's actually really cool. It's really fun to watch all these actors kind of just be their own characters in this movie. It's so much fun. The writing is also really funny, really fun. Like I think that's the best word to describe this movie. At times, it's that it's really fun, but at the same time, it's really serious. Like, um, back to the actors. All the actors do a really good job. I think the biggest standout for me was actually surprisingly Christopher Plummer, because like even though his character unfortunately is killed in the movie, he's probably the most well-rounded of all the characters, I would say, and he has the most fun with his performance, I would say. Of all of the, let's see, it's definitely the film is also very stylish as well. I would say this has like it goes back and forth between it has a unique style because it goes back and forth between like what's happening in the past and like each person, like when they're interviewed, they have to go and look back at what happened between them and Christopher Plummer, for instance, and that's kind of fun to watch, and like how they each add to the story as well. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's been done before, but I think it's a lot of fun to see it in movies. Also, for the most part, actually by the end, it becomes very unpredictable. I couldn't predict anything that happened afterwards, which I'll get into with how I felt about the movie, especially in the second half. But that is probably the biggest issue that I have with this movie is that for a while, this movie kind of annoyed me, I would say. While the film itself is not horrible or anything, especially in the second half, it's still not bad. It still kind of annoyed me because I thought for a while that what they were going for was the twist in the movie, and I don't know if I liked that for a while because like for basically from like the beginning of the second act, you get to see a side of the story, and you're starting to think, oh, this is what they're going for. It's like I know Rian Johnson does different movies, but this might be too different from what you should do with your movie. Like, huh? Like, during the movie, I'm like, is this really a twist? Like, am I okay with this? Like, are we. Like, is this the right way to go with this movie? I don't know. But then, like, by the end, it's actually a lot more unpredictable. I would say, like, I didn't see the ending coming, so it's like, oh, okay, now I see why you did that. So, you know, good on you, Rian Johnson, for doing that. Um, Also, I don't like the political undertones of this movie. I'll say that because they just feel like they kind of come out of nowhere for the most part. Like, okay, so one of the main characters happens to be an illegal immigrant. Fine, like that's an interesting twist, I guess. But a lot of the characters get into debates in this movie that do touch on a lot of modern issues, and I won't go into spoiler territory or anything, but it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, so these characters are on this side and these characters on the other side, and I'm like, okay, what does that add to the story or anything? And I kind of get like by the end, like all of them are kind of just awful no matter what. So it's like, okay, fine, whatever. So I guess overall, Knives Out is a lot of fun to watch, but for a while it kind of just annoyed me. But then it's like, okay, I've gotten over my annoyance, but it doesn't change the fact that it kind of annoyed me for a bit. What else? Oh yeah, Daniel Craig in this movie. I mentioned that Christopher Plummer was probably the best performance in the movie. Okay, also Ana de Armas is probably one of the best in the movie as well. She's the main focus of the movie, surprisingly. But Daniel Craig, wow. He's not awful in his performance, I'll say that. Like, there's no bad performance in this movie. But Daniel Craig is the only one in this movie who's acting through his accent. And quite frankly, it's so annoying by the end of the movie that it just automatically just took me out. Like, I remember in Logan Lucky, like, when he did that accent, it was a lot of fun. And he was really funny. He wasn't, like, overexposed in that movie. It was more of a supporting role. But here he's the main he's not the main focus, but he's technically the main character of the movie. He's the one investigating the family. And by the end, he's just really acting through his accent rather than anything else. Like, you can see throughout the movie, like, various characters are just looking at him, just going, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, and by the end, there's a scene with Chris Evans where he goes, can you stop talking in that stupid accent of yours or whatever? And I'm like, I don't think he was even acting. Like, I think he was actually saying that. But, like, to be fair, that's just more my thoughts. I'm like, if I was Chris Evans in this scene, I would go, yeah, stop with the accent. It's annoying. But, oh well. Overall, Knives Out, it's definitely a lot of fun. It's definitely very funny. All the actors do a fantastic job. It's just, I guess where this movie lies is about how you feel about some of the situations that happen in this movie and how they actually play out in the script. So I definitely would see this movie when it comes out in a few days from when I'm recording this. So overall, I would say 3 out of 4 stars. See it, and yeah. So yeah, I would definitely say see it when it opens in a few days.